So we are in the last week of our series, Subject to Change. And man, I gotta tell you, when I was in college, I lived on an amazing diet of, I would wake up in the morning, get a cup of class, and then I'd go to lunch, and I would eat either a fried chicken sandwich, a burger, or a pizza, all accompanied with fries, because that was what they served. There's like the lower calf, which was like the legit food, like home cooked meal, and then there was the upstairs calf, which was like the fast food type food, and I always went there because I'm a fried chicken and pizza and burger kind of guy. So I would go back to my room, and then I'd do, hang out with people up on my floor, or I'd maybe do homework, and then I would, for dinner, I would either have ramen noodles or some kind of like frozen food meal, and it was awesome. And then around midnight, I'd go out for like a late night dinner at like or something, and then we'd come back and get to work on those papers that we're due in like 6 hours. And how I kind of look. Have you guys ever seen the documentary Super Size Me? Like when the guy like eats McDonald's for every meal for 30 days and like running tests on him, and he's like the doctor's literally at the end of, if you don't stop this, die. It's bad. So then a wonderful thing happened. I married someone named Chelsea who's sick tonight. So food, it makes me eat vegetables, and it's really good. Because without her, I'd probably be like 30 pounds heavier than I am right now. And I've already gained like 30 pounds since we got married. And so, my life expectancy is probably extended like another 10 years because of her, or 20, maybe more. And so, but I came to the realization after, like, she gets into these documentary movies, like, where it's all about health and food, and where our food fund comes from, and where, like, how we're supposed to eat healthy, and what's good for our bodies and what's not. And half of them contradict each other, but whatever. It gets you thinking healthy. And so I've kind of changed my mindset when it comes to my diet. And I'm not always perfect. In fact, if there's like sweets at the office here during the week, I chow down way more than I should. But I go home and I'm usually pretty good. And so my diet has all like changed drastically since I was in college. And it's a good thing. But just because something needs to change doesn't necessarily mean we have an easy time implementing those changes in our life. So how many of you guys, you've probably seen these before, but they're those pictures that can be seen two different ways. So like this first one, what do you see? Just shout it out. What's the first thing you see? A duck? A rabbit? So people see duck, some people see rabbit. How many of you see duck? How many of you see rabbit? How many of you can see both now? How many of you have seen that before? You've probably all seen that before. Oh, a couple of you, okay. Wow, not as many as I thought. Okay, so for those of you who are rabbit people, like the eye is there and it's looking that way and the ears are going that way. So that's the rabbit. It's a profile shot. And if you're looking at a duck, then that's its like bill, and you got his eye there. The eye's still the same. It's just backwards. So that's the first one. We'll move on. If you don't, you can just Google things later if you want. How many sees a young woman looking away from the camera? How many see an old lady from the profile kind of looking this way? Oh. Anybody see the old lady first? The young woman is looking that way. So you see the old lady? So the old lady's eye, that's not right in front of it, the opposite eye, that's the young lady's nose. And the old lady's chin, or the old lady's nose is the young lady's chin looking away. And she's wearing like a fur coat with like a feather head.
Well, they're both wearing that.
You see it now? Everybody see both of them? Which one don't you see? Okay, it's much different. Her whole face is much bigger than the young lady's. So like the young lady's jawline is the old lady's nose, and the young woman's necklace is the old lady's mouth. Boom, there it is. Okay, let's try another one. Do you see a guy playing a saxophone with his foot up? Or do you see the silhouette of a woman's face? You can't see either of them? So the right, or I guess the right eye that's on the white background is like nothingness if you're looking at the saxophone picture. It's like, I don't know what that is. It has nothing to do with the saxophone guy. But the saxophone he's like got hair going forward and a big old nose, and he's playing the saxophone and his foot's up like that.
That's not his foot, that's just the saxophone. That's the saxophone.
Well, then what's the other part? That's like an alto saxophone with like the...
What?
I totally see that different then. Well, his hands are too low then. I'm going to say I'm right just because I'm stubborn that way. And then otherwise, there's a silhouette of like the shadow and on one side and the light. Anyway, okay, well, let's look at the next one. This is how many see a horse? How many see a frog? Anybody not seeing both? Okay, so the horse is like got his head tilted back like this, and it's got its mane and its eyes and like whatever. Okay, but if you're looking at a frog, the frog is like looking down, and the horse's eye is like a crevice in the frog's leg, and the horse's snout and like nose thingy is the frog's eye.
Nostril?
Yeah, that. Nostril. Anybody not say it still?
I see.
Okay, if you want to look it up later, you can. Is that the last one? Yeah. That's the last one, okay. So those are kind of fun. Give you kind of like two ways to see the same picture, and it's actually two different pictures, right? It kind of like messes with your brain. You're like, ugh. Like if you look at those, like that got me Googling all the like paradox pictures that are like, they don't make sense when you look at them because, anyway, so we could go forever on that. But to put your mind at ease, I'm not going to continue talking to you tonight about fast food and diet and eating habits and all that kind of stuff, because honestly, I don't know where I stand with that anymore, because it all, whatever. Food corporations trying. The milk builds strong bones, apparently that's fake. That's something milk sells to children in McDonald's commercials. That's not really real. Studies on people who drink lots of milk and those who don't. The ones who drink lots of milk have more fragile bones. Anyway, stuff I learned from those documentaries I watched. So, but this sermon isn't about choosing what to eat. It's about the fact that if you're anything like me, there are some things in your life that could use changing, right? There's things in our life that we have to change if we're going to be healthier. That applies spiritually, physically, emotionally. You've got to change some things in your life because we all have bad habits that we have to weed out. We've got things in our life that we see the wrong way, that we need to shift our perspective on, and we need to correct some things. Maybe for you it's school. You actually have the potential to be good at school, you just don't try. Maybe there's some of you that just like, it's not school, but it's whatever sport you're going out for. You show up to practice, you go to games, but you don't work on anything outside of that. Maybe you need to just bring in some more effort and make it next year. Or maybe you need to be a little more real about the people that you are allowing to influence your life. Maybe it's something you've got people that you are trying to fit in with when really you should be trying to influence because they need a little more. You're trying to conform to their way of living. And so there's things in all of our lives that we need to change, grow deeper in our faith. And that takes work, that takes time, it takes effort. We all have something that we need to change. And it's much easier said than done. We can sit around all day and poke holes at each other and say, you need to change that, you need to change that. Like, you need to work on that, right? Don't you just love it when you have that people that's always able to tell you what you're bad at? And you're like, you, stop talking to me. I feel bad enough about myself already, right? And there's people in your life that sometimes they've got the spiritual gift of criticism. You know what I'm saying? And they know how to just pick wounds and just say, yeah, get better at that. You need to get better at that. You need to get better at that. You need to stop doing that if you're going to be a good Christian. And sometimes those people really like get on our nerves. And I promise I'm not trying to be that person for you guys today. But what I am saying is that we need to pay attention to certain things in our lives that are unhealthy for us, that we need to adopt a different approach, a different perspective. And some of the reasons that we don't change, some of the reasons that we don't make is maybe we're afraid to fail. Maybe we know that we need to make a change, but we've tried that before. You know what I mean? We've tried to change. And so we're afraid that if we try again and fail again, then that's another scratch on our record, and I don't know if my self-esteem can deal with that. So we're afraid to fail, and we don't. Or maybe we're afraid to stand out. Maybe there is something that we can change, but it's just easier to not draw attention to ourselves, right? We like to kind of be the second or third string. We don't want to be the person who bears all the responsibility or the person who everybody knows, because you don't want to have to live up for much longer, right? So maybe that's you, or maybe we just don't change because we don't want to seem judgmental. Maybe there's some friends that you're hanging out with, and guys talking about the girls in your class. If you were to stop laughing at that and to say, dude, I don't think that's funny, then they would think, like, what, are you all righteous now? Like, what, you think you're better than me? You don't want people to think that you're judgmental. So maybe that's a block for changing something. Or maybe we don't attempt to change because it just seems flat out overwhelming. Because if we were to actually try to tackle all the things that we know we should tackle to get better as individuals, lives, maybe that's the point, but maybe it's still overwhelming. We see so much of our flaws, and it's really hard for us to get started doing anything. I know I've got a task list, and how many of you are list people? List, and you just start knocking it out. Well, for me, I'm a list person. Like, I've got tasks, but I've got like multiple lists and multiple different apps, and so I get overwhelmed with the amount of lists and tasks I need to accomplish. So I just sometimes, I'm going to go watch Netflix and just like not even try, because I just don't have the brain power for right now. And I'm at times. And so I think in order to, we put weight in certain things, we put authority, we put stock into different things we listen to. And it can be really easy to church or the Bible, one of those things that we just like, and that's what's this has withstood the changes in culture, changes in people's beliefs, the changes in the way that we think about things 2,000 years. But these same truths are still intact, and we've still seen evidence, and more evidence comes out all the time, that if we live our lives the way that God instructs us through His disciples, then our lives just actually turn out better. There's actually less heartache. It's less messy. It's more simple when we just live life the way God created us to. And so today, we're actually going to read from God's brother, James, Jesus' brother. Came, and actually, how many of you are like old? How many of you are the younger sibling? If your older sibling came up and said, hey, Mom and Dad aren't gone. I'm not in charge of babysitting you right now, but I want you to know that I am God, and you should do what I say. How do you think that's going to go over? Not very well. Why not? Because you live with that person. There's no way that person's God, right? So what do you think James thought when Jesus started like preaching in the temple at 12? Talking to all the religious leaders, telling them what they've got wrong about the Word of God, and how Jews at that time were supposed to live. Like James didn't believe. Can you imagine also your brother of God and your parents being like, can't you just be this, right? That's just like, well, thanks. Like how am I supposed to ever James didn't think much of Jesus. Believe in Jesus. He was not one of Jesus' disciples. And then this happened where he died, and then he came out of the grave alive again on the third day. And James saw him after being crucified and was like, dude, you really are God. And so he starts like the way he saw Jesus go changes. And so he becomes this one of the prominent church as the church was, Jesus said, hey, I'm going to go back, but I have a mission for you. It's to, and it's a people. It's you guys who have seen me. And I want you to go and give other people the same hope that I gave you. And so he gives this command to all the people, and he says, this will be the church. You're going to be my body. You're going to be my faith who don't know me. So you, church, you're going to go out and you're going to go to all the world. You're going to go to Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth. And you're going to declare who I am and tell them about me. And then the world will have hope. And if you live the way that I've taught you, not only do you have hope for life, but you because it's just a better way. I have a better way. I have the way that God always designed for it to be. And so James takes the message, and what you need to know about the people he's writing to are that they didn't exactly go into all the world right away. That's difficult to do. Your home, leaving your country that you love and the freedoms you enjoy, and going somewhere else, just in the name of Jesus, to tell them about this guy that died and then rose from the dead. And so, as you can imagine, they didn't just leave right away. But you know what did happen? Is heavy persecution started happening. And so actually, we don't think of the gospel as a political. I mean, we just, like seniors or 18, you're old enough to vote. Yeah. So you could have voted because you're 18 now. So that's congratulations. Welcome to adulthood. And so the gospel is being political, but when Jesus said, I am God and I am the king. In fact, we call, like, if you've been to CIY, our job as Christians are to do kingdom work, like, or to advance the gospel, to advance the kingdom of Jesus in this world. That is saying that the emperor of Rome is not really the one true king. So see how that becomes very political. Well, the Romans didn't like that. King, not Jesus. We killed him. And they're like, yeah, well, he came back. And so they're like, well, anyway, so they start this persecution of the Christians, and they start trying to take them out, and say, so the Christians have had to flee their homes. And so now they're in this position where now they can advance the gospel in other places because of the persecution that's happening. And so it's in this moment that James, the brother of Jesus, who didn't believe in Jesus until after the resurrection, writes this letter of encouragement. And here's what he says. He says, dear brothers and sisters, identifying with them, saying, I'm one of you. I know what it's like to be in your shoes. Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, not if, because there are a guarantee, when troubles come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. And if you're like me, then, oh, great. You're going to give me encouragement by telling me that the bad things that are happening are an opportunity for joy. In which case, it's like those people that, like, when bad things happen to you, and you're like, well, God has a plan, right? You just want to smack them, don't you? It's like, I know God has a plan. I'm sure He has a plan. He's God. But that's how I feel when people try to say those things all the time. And I'm not emotionally ready to hear those words yet. But here's where we find James. He's saying, consider it an opportunity for great joy. Even in his wording there, it's not immediately something that it's a choice. You have an opportunity to choose to find joy in that situation, right? Because happiness is fleeting. Happiness is based on our circumstances. It changes with the wind. But our joy, that is something that can never be taken from us. He says, so consider troubles of any kind an opportunity for great joy. And then he goes on, for you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. How many of you guys are in some kind of sport where you have to work out? Like you got to lift weights, you got to get stacked, right? So when I was in basketball, I was in weights class at school 6 hours. So 6th period, I had to go and lift weights. And then for basketball after school, later, I had to lift weights again, separate workout. So I had to in the morning as well. I know what this is like. You've got to work out intensely when you're involved in a physically demanding sport. But let me tell you something. I did not get very strong, well, ever, but especially right away. I mean, I was 140 pounds when I graduated high school, okay? I was a skinny dude, and yeah, I was from working out, but I didn't eat all the right foods to actually gain muscle. So, like, I know what it's like, though, because my body shape changed. Even though I wasn't getting a whole lot stronger, I was getting endurance, and I was able to slowly be able to last longer and lift longer. And so, when you know that when you're working out, you tear the muscles, right? And that's why you're sore. When you work out, your muscles tear, and they hurt. And then the next day, you're trying to heal, doing it again. So those two, you have your rest day, and heal. And they heal bigger. And so muscles, that's why they call it swole when you're getting ripped and work, like you're ripped because you're ripping the muscles and you're getting swollen. You're actually causing the physique of your body to change by tearing it. So I know you all probably know this. Here's my point. Your faith is like a muscle. Endurance when it comes to faith is a muscle. When you have trouble coming your way, when you have bad things that aren't fair, things you didn't ask for, but things that you are forced to go through, it is an opportunity for great joy. And you know that when those things happen, not if, but when those things happen, you have an opportunity to stretch that faith muscle and to increase your trust in a God who always proves to be faithful despite the circumstances. His outcome all on your side. So James goes on and he says, so let it, your endurance, verse 4. So let it, your endurance, grow, for when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. Is saying that practice makes progress. Like, I don't want to say practice makes perfect, because you know that practice makes perfect. Well, you're never going to get perfect, right? There's always things you need to work on. That is life, right? So I like to say practice makes progress. You don't get anywhere unless you practice. And when your endurance is fully developed, meaning you've gone through enough trials, gone through enough little things that when bigger things happen, it doesn't you are because you've trusted God in situations and He's proven to be faithful. But you don't ever get to see the faithful side of bad circumstances or as an opportunity. Let me say that again, because, and it doesn't really make sense. It's kind of a paradox. Like some of those drawings you can look up on Google. But when you put your faith in God, when you choose not to put your faith in God and put your trust in Him, and when you choose not to look for joy in the midst of bad circumstances, when you choose not to trust God in those situations, you don't get to see how His hand is in it. You don't get to see how He's faithful in the midst of it if you don't trust in the midst of it. Instead, and you know, to be bitter and angry towards God because He didn't do something that you should have done, and your outcome wasn't just. Well, guess what? There are good Christians all over the world who have outcomes that are not just, and it's because of their faith. So don't take bad circumstances as God not loving you enough, because I think He's proved that enough, and He proved that through suffering on the cross for you and me. So if He's gone through suffering and He tells us that it's going to happen, then the best thing we can do is practice with that endurance muscle. Work it, exercise it, and trust Him in the midst of bad circumstances. When we trust who God is and what He's like, we can be sure that God is doing something in us, no matter how uncomfortable that change might be. And that's difficult. It does take practice, let me tell you. And it's so important for you to get this as high school now. Because here's the thing. You think life is messy now. I know adults say this to you all the time, and it makes you want to slap them too. But there's going to be a time where you'll exchange schoolwork for a career. And you'll exchange dating for marriage, which is much more work. And you'll exchange family now, where you are not in charge of how it turns out. And you'll exchange that for a family that you are in charge of, that God has given you responsibility and authority over. And that is a bigger pressure. And it takes more work, and it takes endurance. So it's so important that you learn these things so that when those bigger responsibilities come in adulthood, which will come whether you're ready or not, hopefully you will be ready because you've practiced putting your faith in something stronger than yourself. The strength that you develop now will be the strength that you need, and that will take you into your future. So I want to encourage you to change the way that you see change. Because a lot of people see change as something that's dreaded, something that we're creatures of habit, we're habitual. We go to sit somewhere, if we're given free reign on where to sit at the cafeteria lunch, then we most likely will sit in the similar spot every day we walk into that cafeteria, because we are creatures of habit. And sometimes we need change, just like the Christians in the first century. We need change to happen to us in order to set our faith on fire, in order to remember the urgency that is our mission as Christians. And sometimes, especially in the United States of America, it can be really easy to forget that urgency, because we just sitting on the couch. And we cease to look for opportunities of great joy. So instead of seeing or seeing yourself as someone who has to change something about yourself, think about it that way, because you'll fail every time, because you'll get discouraged, because you can't change everything about yourself all at once. It's a process, it's a lifelong thing. So in order to have endurance here, I want you to say thing. As I've been talking, hopefully things have been coming to your mind in your life you need. I probably don't even need to tell you, but it can be tempting to say, I'm working to change this one thing. Instead of saying that, say, working hard to become a person. Instead of saying, man, I've got to change this one thing, start seeing yourself as a person who changes things. That's just a part of who you are. So in order to be successful about this, you have to invite other people into it with you. If you want to be successful, you have to invite other people into the process of your life. You have to have a Christ-centered community around you that will help build you up and will help support you through the midst of those hard times. Otherwise, you will tap out and feel defeated, and you won't grow. So I want you to decide to think of it not as changing what you do, but as working on who you are. Because every decision you make now is turning you into. Instead of thinking about the little details of the thing, decide to think of it not as changing what you do, but working on who you are. And if you know who your identity lies with, then all the behaviors follow that. But we like to jump to the behaviors before we address who we are at our core. Life is subject to change. We all know this. Some of us are more prepared than others. But how you face that change will either make or break you. Would you guys pray with me?